So, I wanted to take a look at this. This is beautiful. You gave me layers. Thank you for saving as a .tiff. You were the best. First and biggest mistake is I think this house is on a hill, and this hill is, right. Let me just try to get this going. No, wrong layer. Istebrak. All right. So this is a hill, and these are the clouds, and this is the sky. So what happened is you completely forgot about one massive thing you were pointing to the entire time. One corner of the three-pointed star of light environment and form, which is the environment itself, the surrounding, which is the wall. I call it the wall, but really it means sky, or just the box the object is in. This box can be the world, or it can be the room that it's in, but this world and the object is floating in this world, this atmosphere, is the wall. And when you have a dark wall, it just makes zero sense. There is no possible reason, unless you're trying to study a Salvador Dali painting, there is no reason whatsoever this background should not be this light. There is no reason whatsoever. This is a mistake, a big mistake. You're casting shadows that are super sharp. Look at these shadows. They're indicating a strong nearby light source, allowing all of this form to be revealed. We're seeing every single shingle. If the sky was this dark, this object would be this invisible. It's a very, very nighttime scene. There wouldn't be any long shadows like that. It just doesn't work like that. Even if it was a moon, unless it had to be like a big ass moon. It had to be like, this big, really bright, perfect sky, clear. There's just so many reasons why this doesn't work. And it's not familiar to us either. We're not used to this. We don't find this kind of setup familiar in our visual library as the viewers. So it's just never going to work. It's never going to work. When you want to be stylistic without sacrificing physics. Don't sacrifice physics for style. Write that back to me. You can sacrifice color accuracy. You can sacrifice technique. But you cannot sacrifice physics. And once you do get to that skill level where you are so good, you know how to sacrifice the physics and still make it look good, at that point, I will not be here teaching you. You'll be there teaching me. You'll be that good. But until then, just don't ever do that again. Okay, so you got some crazy texture going on in here. I'm not even sure if this is a photo or you drew it in, but it looks good. Okay, so now that we did that, I feel like this entire setup is a little bit limited. This is supposed to be the witch's hovel, but I'm not sure why it's above the, cloud level. I feel like this is not land. It feels like these are clouds, Like if this was supposed to be land, then it's a very foggy land. Like there's, that dry ice they put in weddings, those really cheesy weddings when they use dry ice on the dance floor. So, yeah, that's what it looks like. You just see like a bunch of dry ice just spread everywhere, which does not look right. So I'm going to get Dodge Tool on midtones, and I'm going to just illuminate anywhere that's outside of a cast shadow. And this cast shadow right here needs to be much brighter because it's being cast on a white substance, which is the cloud. So it needs to be a much lighter cast shadow. And because it's a lighter cast shadow, you'll see more contours in there. So it'll be a generally lighter area, but with a slight little shadow hovering over everything. And this is why I say leave your cast shadows for the end. Put your cast shadows on a separate layer. Write that back to me. Putting them on a separate layer lets you work on the basic plate, which is all the contours, all the edge work, all of the detail, all that business, and then you get to dress up the form with some cast shadows later on. Cast shadows just sit on the face. I see them as a separate thing. Those really long ones that just aren't surrounded by anything else, at least. If the face is really dark and it's a dark room, you gotta, have that all in the same layer. And this piece right here, there's so much light being reflected down here that this cast shadow here would also be diffused. And then this cube right here would also be a little bit diffused. Where you were before was you were in between two kinds of light source. You were in between two instances of a light environment. So all of these shadows are being diffused by this surrounding grass. Nothing is going to just sit there and stay pitch black. There's just so much light bouncing around. The tree here, unless it's like a black bark and black leaves, it would not stay this dark. This tree needs to be just a little bit lighter. And then you need to have some secondary light source diffusing the side of this tree. And then you'll have an opportunity to make the cylinder that is the tree a little bit more three-dimensional. So you see now you have a terminator line running down the tree. Okay, so everything you have to find the base geometry of every object. For a trunk, it's the cylinder. So doing some form studies for a cylinder means you'll never forget about this secondary diffuse right here that you can use, that is possible in this kind of light environment. See that? And we're trying to preserve the terminator line. And then this light source here is going to cast some really bright lights. Okay, so I'm going to fix that. Where you were before was you were in a situation where you were trying to show a lot of form, but you chose a light environment where form was not possible. So the potential for form is decreased when we have a nighttime scene. So we don't see much form at night. Write that back to me. Right. And then we can give these leaf bushes, these little bundles of leaves, some shadow, but just at the very ends and the major pieces that look away from the light source. But the ones at the very height of the leaves, we have bright points. And the same exact thing with these beanstalks, or I'm not really sure. It's kind of a really cool concept. Right at the edges of these, we have a secondary light source again. Because that's the whole world. The whole world is working to make this. And the light source is so strong, it's an environment. Alright, that's how you know that you're going to have secondary light source working to make every part of this object visible. So that your eyes can sink in all that information and process it and see the object. So there's going to be another one right there. So any questions so far about light environment? I know it's something I've given up. I've given in and I've given up. It's something that I'm always going to be talking about. So I'm never going to shy away and say, oh, I already covered that in another video. I'm never going to do that. But I do want you guys to write down these notes and ask questions and stay part of the dialogue so you understand it as much as you can at this moment that I'm explaining it. So what is a light environment? A light environment is the relationship between the light source, the room the object is in, and then the object. How dark can you go? How light can you go? What's the color of the object? What's the intensity of the light? What is the direction of the light source? What is the color of the light source? What is the reflectivity of the wall that the environment that the object is in of the environment? Is it a sky? Is it an indoor environment? All of these things play a role in creating a successful light environment and then a successful painting. The house, I think you tried vanishing the house into a corner, which isn't possible because, unless the house's shape is exactly like this, but if it's a perfectly symmetrical house, what will happen is it will be a little bit more like this. Okay. So before, after. How do you position theme? What do you mean? How do you know secondary light source? Okay. How do you position them? Is that what you mean? Happy-go-lucky? How do you position a secondary light source? Okay. So when we're talking about secondary light source, let's talk about different geometries. So at the end of the day, if you don't know how to shade a cylinder, a cube, a pyramid, or a sphere, you really can't draw. You really can't render, I mean. If you don't know how to draw these without using a line and make these edges perfect and render them, you really will not be able to figure out where to put secondary light source. So you have to start doing some form studies. Next up is thinking about the z-axis. So we've got x, y, and z. This is not something you can argue with. This is the entire world. Everything is 3 dimensions. You can either go up, down, or side to side, or in and out of something, which is more than enough, I think, for us. We don't really need a 4th dimension. So when we think about the z-axis, we have to find where this z-axis sits on this object. You can actually just, hover this exact map, Cartesian map, I think it's called, on any of these, and you'll find where the z-axis is. So if the z-axis is telling me that right here is where this is the part that moves in like that. So the arrow is pointing inward. We're going into the sky and floating and swimming around. This part here is what will become what we look at. So when we look at it, we'll see this as the front of this cylinder. But because you as the artist are always stuck looking at this from this angle of your monitor, you're looking into the drawing, it's hard for you to rotate. So rotation, along with understanding where the z-axis sits in the world, and basic geometries that are the foundation, the native shape of every object you're ever going to render, those 3 things combined together will help you draw and understand where the secondary light source sits on an object. So if this was the light source coming out of here, and the cast shadow was cast over this way, and then this part here is illuminated and this is illuminated, the secondary light source would just be making this part here a little bit lighter. If you had, a shadow over here, this part would be lit up as a secondary light source. The sphere right along here is where that secondary light source would sit. So the secondary light source is something, if you understand it well, it means you understand rotation, basic core geometry, and the z-axis, rotation, and the fact that you can go in and out of a world as you're creating a world that you can enter. So when I put secondary light sources, it's just, this is reflecting here. And when the light hits down, another rule to remember is light only travels in straight lines. It only travels always in straight lines. But when it does move and distribute, it distributes also in straight lines. So it just reflects back. This secondary line right here is what secondary light source is. That's where it's coming from, bouncing off other objects and bouncing back. And the light source will always ever come out of this direction. It's not going to come out of this direction because then there'd just be another light source. So if there's one sun causing all this to be visible, that's why all the shadows are running away from it. Because they're pointing, if you invert it, they're pointing back to the light source. Okay? So because you cast these amazing shadows right here, beautiful long shadows, I love this part, you're telling me the light source is pretty strong. If it was a weak light source, we would not have a strong light. So let's put that to the test. Okay. So we're going to decrease the strength of this cast shadow right here. And as that cast shadow goes down, the light source goes down, that cast shadow pretty much becomes invisible. So this is nighttime, and then the environment behind the object is nighttime. This is Portrait Studio, by the way. You can find it in my store. So this is a nighttime scene. No, there are no more cast shadows because there's no more light. So cast shadows and the light source are hand in hand. They're brother and sister. They're lovers. They're Cersei and Jamie. Ew, I hate those. I hate those two. They are the bestest of friends. They are yin and yang. They are duality. They are life and death. Okay, they come together. That sounds wrong. So when we introduce just a little bit of light, look at that. That's so pretty. If we introduce just a little bit of light, we have to have cast shadows because that's just how they work. The presence of the light source causes cast shadows. And this is a nearby light source. Look at that. That's so pretty. And the reason why cast shadows are so amazing is because they are the thing. They are like in the light environment. They are the final little nail in the grave that makes that's a bad metaphor. They are that final little push of realism that make it all just so amazing. Okay. And they stand hand in hand. The further away it gets, the blurrier it gets. The closer it is, the sharper it is. Areas of high contrast, it will also be darker. Areas of low contrast, it'll be lighter. And if I bring in a second object, so let's bring in a second light and show where that secondary light source sits. It just sits down here. So it's going to go into the z-axis. It's going to go beside the model. Just right beside her where like a firefly might be. You see how it's limited to this area? So take a look at her temple. This is the cube, that side of the cube I was showing you. Secondary light source almost always diffuses the diffuses the core shadow of the primary light source. Okay. You can make it strong, and it'll be like a pin light or a rim light. And make it weaker, just so that you can show some of the form that's been lost on her face. But without it, you still have this the main lights coming out of the primary, and it casts its own shadows. Every light casts a shadow. You're just going to have some that layer on top of each other, and shadows that layer on top of each other are shadows that get darker in that moment that they lay on top of each other. Like it's called a Venn diagram. Where you have two circles, and then you have a little piece in the middle. Okay, and then if you strengthen this all the way up, you're telling me that this entire room is strong. So that this whole light source. I mean, if the light was... No. Come back. If the light source was above her in like a sunlight type of situation, and the ambience, of course, if you increase the light source, Portrait Studio gives you so much control, you forget to change stuff as well. It doesn't change automatically, but when there's ambience, meaning if you're outside in the day, or outside in the environment, if you're in sunlight, then you're going to have ambience. And secondary light source becomes obsolete, really. Doesn't give you that much. But if it's a nighttime scene, the world is dark, the ambience is low, and then the secondary light source really gets to shine. And if it's a moon, it'll probably be like a little bit more distorted cast shadows. But remember that when you talk universal, when you're talking about a universal light source, which is why the symbol for it is a sun, you have to change the environment color. And not just that, you have to change the ambience as well, how dark the shadows are. So what I changed for you is I made these shadows lighter. That's the ambience. I made the objects lighter. The objects themselves are more visible. That's the light source. And I made the background lighter. That's the room. That's the environment that it's in. So when we're talking about light environment, we're talking about all of the physics involved in form. Okay, so before you had a really strange looking thing going on. It could have been a moon, but moon casts way longer shadows. Everything is generally darker. The clouds would not be this white. And after we gave it that brightness, it kind of made a little bit more sense. And this actual background could have been even lighter. You can make it like really bright, but you don't have to. Of course, sometimes we reserve some brightness spikes just so that the form doesn't get flooded out, or we don't have to worry too much about some stuff. But we could have made it like this bright, and we would have gotten away with it. You're above the clouds. You're almost no oxygen up there, and there's no distortion, and there's no anything obstructing the sunlight. You're gonna get the most brightness up there. That's why they need telescopes so high up. Alright, so flatten that. Send that back to, I still feel like the grass is just a little bit dark. It doesn't really feel like grass. Grass is yellow based, it's green. So it's going to be, it's going to be even brighter. Let me see if I can do it for you. Okay, select inverse. Let me raise the contrast up. Okay, oops. Okay, hide, image, adjustments, contrast. Because remember, in a bright light source, the contrast goes up as well as the brightness. I feel like it would just be this bright. That way it really does match the environment it's from. I'm not sure. You would have to be the judge of it, but this feels closer to grass, the value of grass. Just like that. So you guys get me? There's so many things that change. So as the light source environment and the sunlight goes up, contrast goes up, edges are sharper, details are more visible, shadows are diffused, secondary light source is stronger, color is vibrant, color is saturated, everything. The light feeds all information, anything that pertains to our visual sense, the light feeds it. And when the light is missing, we have this dark scene. But even then, the shadows were just too big, too strong. Okay, so I hope that kind of explained to you what a light environment is. I'm sorry I didn't look at I didn't look at the questions. What about the cast shadows of those trees on the right? Wouldn't it appear? What do you mean? The light bounces on the floor and it will reflect a part of the light back up. Yes, a fraction of it, not the full intensity. It's not a mirror. What's up with the missing cast shadow? If it's casting in the wrong direction, landing on the edge of the house. Yeah, it should be on top of the house. I remember seeing that and questioning as well. Or not on top of the house. If it was right beside the house, then it should have been on the ground, actually. Let me just take a look. Everyone's asking about them now. Yeah. I think the way the person saw it was that the light source was, the house was in front, but really it's supposed to be like this. So you follow the contour. Well, it doesn't matter what value I choose. You follow the contour like that. It might all bloom out this way, or it might all go in the same direction. It really just depends on where the light source is coming from. And then it's sharper where it starts. This is really rough, by the way. And then eventually blends into the contour. Diffuses around the middle where it's brightest. Just like that. And of course it would have those moments of relief, like the hole in between these two. And then the space in between those later. Cancel. Latin. Yes. Okay. Damn it. Alright. So last class, what I did was I uploaded a video. I did a class on where the core shadows of the face go. And I was talking about how these core shadows are sourced from the geometry, the basic geometries under everything. And these basic geometries are to explain them even further, they come from these low poly, geometry really just means, when I say it, I mean try to get rid of as much of the organic patterns as possible and go down to the most basic form. A basic form helps reveal. Let me get rid of some of this stuff. It helps reveal some. Sorry, I need to get this light back. Okay, it helps reveal some of the form involved. So we've got the side of the forehead right here. And when we look at it from top down, so that basic light source we all know and love, just like this one that we always paint, we see that the temples of the head are limited and they're constricted. They're part of this really, really dark area, this L shape of darkness that goes in from the temple. See that L shape? Squint your eyes and you can see it. There's like a square of light right here and then shadow around it. These are the core geometries that I'm talking about, that I was talking about last class. I felt like I should just show a little bit more of the low poly model. So when we have this and we've got light over here and over here, at this point you need to stop trying to do a 14-day challenge and start doing some form studies. A lot of you are going into the 14-day challenge thinking it's like the quick fix. It is a great challenge, but if you know, this challenge helps you discover where your weaknesses are. So if you know you have weaknesses in form, and I've just told you have weaknesses in understanding basic geometries and form signatures and native geometry, you need to go stop doing what you're doing and go do some form studies. Knowing how to shade a cube is not simple. It's not easy. It's not something that will just come to you. You have to learn how to do it, and you have to practice it. You have to put some hours into it. It's a great place to study light environment as well, how bright the room is around the cube, how bright you're going to make the cube. So at the end of the day, really, if you're skipping form studies and you're going straight into a 14-day challenge, and those are the two main methods of study I always recommend, but if you're skipping form studies, you're doing yourself a disservice, because it means you're going to make mistakes like this way into your career, or you will have never nipped that in the bud, and you will stay like a weaker artist in that respect. Why put yourself through that? Another thing I wanted to talk about with this 14-day challenge submission is how to blend skin. I'm always blending skin on really, really low opacity. So just take a look at my opacity when I do this, 17%. If you guys aren't doing this, you're really not going to be able to pull it off. Right, another one of those core shadows is the half shadow, the beard shadow. So we don't have enough of that here. And then this one here. Okay, I'm going to bring down that contrast all the way. We don't need that much. And then lo and behold, there is a super bright, super dark light environment wall color, which is, the rule is to have it brighter. If it's dark, you'll always draw really, really dark values. You're always going to draw that really dark thing happening. So I brought down her brightness, but before you had extreme contrast. So you need to fix that. 14-day challenge, try to keep like an outdoor light source, or at least a room that's well lit, good for photographing. But yeah, to blend skin, the opacity goes all the way down. And what I do is I find fatty pockets. So areas that are fatty in the face get larger gradients. Write that back to me. Sorry about the messy lasso. That's just how it works. So here, everybody touch your face. Your cheeks are always going to be squishy. Even if you lose weight, your cheeks are still going to be the chunkiest part of your face. So you're going to need to show that fat is diffusing any major geometries in this area. So we're not going to see the skeleton. There's practically no skeleton here. The jaw and the skull are separate. So that's why we need to have some of these gradual shades over here. But you really are drawing these halos everywhere, man. You need to get rid of them. Okay, the forehead is another moment where it's not really fatty. It's just the shape. It's a dome-like object. Okay, so those are everywhere. Those patches and halos you have everywhere. The eyes are a little bit too big and cartoony. The nose is it's still very, very symbolic. And I can't go into all of that in depth, but I just wanted to talk about how I shade skin. Guys are always asking me, so I wanted to cover that. I lower my opacity all the way. Right now I'm using low opacity halfway, and then I'm using transfer. Transfer is another way to lower your opacity, which is transfer's not on? Yeah, it is. What the fuck? Oh. Yeah, it is. What the fuck is this, man? Is transfer on? Yes. Why does it tell me it's not on? It's behaving the exact same. I don't know. My Photoshop is really glitched. Anyway, transfer is another way to lower your opacity. Pressing really lightly means you're going to get less paint. Just like this. So right now this is not 43% visibility. This is like 10%. And you still keep those jagged bony areas where you're allowed to have really strong values and really strong edges. You can keep those areas sharper than areas that are fatty, but you can't keep them geometrically sharp, or else you're just drawing in a sorrow head. Okay, so that's how I do it. My opacity goes all the way low, and I just very gradually layer the values on top of each other until I get that nice polished skin look. Skin is very reflective, very oily, very soft. So it's like this constantly gradiating object wrapped up around a geometry of the skeleton and the muscles. So yes, skin is soft and you can use soft brush, but remember the skeleton. If you forget the skeleton, you forget the geometry. Write that back to me. So before you had extreme contrast, she practically had face paint on. It looked like she was, going to that Dia de Muerte or something. She was getting ready for her makeup. I feel like she got white paint put on her face. It was just like an outside value. And now you have this nice, really nice plate to bring in some contrast only where you need it. So the nose, radially building up the highlights on the cheeks, the forehead. Okay. You really need to work on your noses. So if you want like a diagnostic from me, abort mission on the 14-day challenge, or maybe even continue it if you have time. But please do not put this 14-day challenge ahead of form studies. And once you do form studies, I think the nose is going to become a lot easier for you. So do some more form studies and try to sneak in a couple of nose studies as well. Knowing how to paint a pyramid will make you know how to paint a nose better. Okay, if you forget the skeleton, you forget the geometry. Excellent. Alright, so see when I had that basic plate of grays, I had a chance to raise my values back up. Oops. Alright, so before, the background is just too dark, man. Light environment, you guys do not forget the wall of the light environment. Do not forget the room of the light environment. And then I've got this dodge tool that I can really use now. Only where it really sparkles, where the skin shines, where we have those high points or those dewy areas of shimmer. Those are the areas that get that. Now we have that polished look that you guys love, but you don't want to do the studies that get you this polished look. You can't pull off this polished look if you don't understand where values go and where they don't. So if you guys do your studies and understand where skeleton really belongs, you'll know where to blend. So you guys just saw me blending at low opacity. You're probably going to go and start blending everything. There are some areas in this painting that were very, very good. The darks on either side over here. Yeah, the cheekbones are great. It's just that you were missing the fatty bits. So it was all geometry. It looked like an android. The nose needs to be much brighter. It needs to catch more light. This area over here is just a little bit too dark. The shadow pretty much is limited right over here. So you've got that core shadow. Darken. So can someone explain to me in a quick sentence or two the value of a form study? What does form study do? What does it help you focus on? What is the biggest thing the form study helps? What is the biggest thing that the form study helps you with? Alright, I'm going to shrink the eyes real quick for you. So you see my opacity is always low. I'm always trying to build that dewy texture of the skin tone. That's the only way to really do it. Your opacity's got to go low. And if you're painting traditionally, exactly the same thing. You work with dry brush and you slowly layer the values. Okay, so let me go before, after, And the eyes are just too large. A lot of people say, hey, Istebrak, stop changing faces so that they fit your own beauty standard. You make them all look like Barbies. I'm shrinking the eye right now, so, so shut the fuck up. I'm shrinking the eye, which means that it's a completely opposite to what a Barbie is. Okay? Alright, you from YouTube, whoever you are, forgot your name. So what I'm doing right now is I'm bringing back an organic feeling. I'm making her look like an older woman. Like, she does look like an older woman. Look at her bone structure. She's a 20-year-old or something. But it's no longer that anime, maybe a little bit, whoa, a little bit larger. No, that's too big. This one's smaller now. Yep. So when we enlarge her features, she'll actually match her bone structure. Enlarge her nose. So before, after. She still looks pretty, man. It's just that now her bone structure is a little bit more accurate to her age. She looks like a really pretty Russian model with really strong bones that are almost masculine. But that's okay, because that's unique, and that's what we want. We want distinguished. Alright, the inner part of the brows, please blend them away. Do not over outline the eyebrows on either side. We need relief. We need detail relief, detail relief. The edges of the lips, please, please, please don't just draw little cartoony lines. You need to create like a gradual descent into the corners of the of the lip and the nostrils. So dark spots aren't just blobs, they're caves. Please write that back to me. The nose and mouth dark spots aren't just blobs, they're caves. So before, after. So I don't always look at 14-day challenges, but I did want to cover this big thing. So last time I talked about the core shadows and how to preserve the native geometric core shadows of the face, and now we're going to be looking, like today we looked at how to polish after that. So how to blend those core shadows that are really jagged and sharp compared to the fatty pockets. And the fatty pockets of the face are almost over here. Always over here, just this fatty area. The lips are fatty. This area here can be fatty. Let me draw with a red marker. It's the fat pocket here, fat pocket here, fat pocket here. Okay, these are all the fattiest areas of the face. Fat pocket here and here on the neck, like the double chin. These are all areas that you can blend very soft. Okay. Caves, not blobs. Flip your canvas. The nose and mouth dark spots aren't just blobs, they're caves. Okay. So I'm going to sharpen this down. Lower this down. Please don't forget about the value of the room. The room is so important. One big thing that bugged me, I'm not going to go into this full depth, but one thing that bothered me is your use of two lines on either side of the upper area of the breast. This area actually stays just this value. It doesn't get dark. As soon as I did that, it started to make sense. Because why would a shadow sit up here? This is the part of the geometry that looks up at the light source. So if you've got light and you've got a sphere, why would the upper part of the sphere that's supposed to be looking at the light get a shadow on it? That's physically impossible, unless there's a black hole bending light or it's taking light from that one particular section of the sphere. I mean, it's impossible. It's impossible unless you got paint and painted it in so her boobies look bigger. Okay, so that's not what we do. When we want to show there's more volume, we just get a highlighter, and we use what's available to us in this area, which is the highlights. The highlights we can use to make her breasts look, more defined if that's what you were going for. Something like that. But even then, highlights isn't reaching this area, so just leave this area alone. You want to do something? Cast a shadow. Darken. And just cast a nice sharp shadow right there from the other breast onto this one. And then just build up the highlights. The highlight here is so strong. At that point, that's really all you should do. I can't go into everything else. You got shadows on either side of the nose. You've got asymmetry. You've got, diffusion happening on the core shadow under the nose, which is not possible. So you've got a lot of stuff to work on. I suggest you work on a grayscale for a while and try to polish the image in grayscale, and then go into color again. 14-day challenge wouldn't hurt your progression either. For this one, the skin value is very, very yellow. I would push it to the reds just a little bit. Let's just take a look at what happened. Wait, that was really green before. I ruined the surprise. I'm pushing it to the reds just a little, just so we can get that rosy flesh color. Before it was really green. And we can push the reds even further and then desaturate. And we're getting even more accurate skin tone color. A lot of you think that in order to get a realistic skin tone, we have to oversaturate the pinks and bring in a bunch of greens. Really, it's just about desaturating, because whatever color the skin ends up being, it's really dull. Skin is dull. Without the blood underneath it and without the sweat on top of it, skin is a dull color. Write that back to me. Without the blood underneath it and without the sweat on top of the skin and the oils, skin is a very dull color just by itself. Okay, so the colors here were the biggest thing that kind of knocked me off. And then when we get into the light sources, when we get into areas that actually have yellows on them, that's the only place where we're allowed to diffuse that red. So go into the color and then start using that yellow. So bring that yellow back, but only, not all of it, but only where the light source touched the skin. And then the green that you had before, again, we're only bringing it back where it's needed. So the closest green to yellow is just this pale. That's the only kind of green we can use, and we're laying that right under the eyes. Color. A little bit on the eyelids. Nope. It's pink on the eyelids. Right along here. Merge that down. There's so much editing to do. It's hard to tell what needs to be fixed and what doesn't. But pretty much this is starting to look a lot more believable for me. I'm going to desaturate even further on the cheekbones because she seems pale. So paler skin gets yellower and whiter values on it. And all those purples are visible. The shadows over here are way too strong. There's a lot of diffuse in the area, and a lot of the value of her skin is very strong. The cheekbones here are a little bit overdone. You're going too dark too soon, like she had a lot of contouring on her face. It just got too dark too soon, which means an external pigmentation might have caused it. The fold here, I feel like some of this fold should be kind of blended away because her eyes are looking down. We get the most of that fold when we look forward and we cause a crease. So I feel like this fold would be missing, and then in place of it we'd have this like hill of light just moving all the way down, just like that. Because she's looking down. But again, if she had makeup, you would put artificial shadows right here on the crease. So you can bring the shadow back, but don't bring it back as a line. Bring it back as a crease or makeup or an indication or a slight bump down like that. But we still need to see that shine on the upper eyelid. So blend away that line. Get rid of that line. It's not there anymore. I would love to see some cast shadows. The eyebrow here is outlined practically on the lower part. Unify the eyebrow with the skin around it. Write that back to me. So what I usually do is smudge the bottom of the eyebrow. Just completely like combine it with the skin. My opacity is really low and on the wrong mode. My eye is always back here. You see that pause I take after a couple strokes? I'm looking over here. And I'm using that low opacity technique I just showed you to make the skin glow a little. Next thing I would do is I would get a new layer and get rid of those color. And I'd get that yellow back, but only really, not even the yellow, it's just like a browny kind of pale beige, and I just lay it anywhere where there isn't any blush happening. So if we look at it before, if we look at the before, oops, merge down, before and after, take a look at that color difference. So to understand skin is to understand its biological, you deconstruct it biologically. The skin without blood and sweat and all of those other colors without pigmentation, without makeup, is just a really pale, if you're not dark African skinned, it's just even if you're tanned or Caucasian, it's just a pale yellow. But that pale yellow, it's not a green, it's a pale yellow beige. It's like a really, really desaturated pale. So not only did I desaturate the value you had before, but I gave it a flesh tone. That was the biggest thing that kind of popped off. Popped out. And then you see those shadows on either side of the cheekbone, and then the lines on the eyes. Okay? So those are big changes, big differences. Also, I feel like this part right here wouldn't be as dark as it is and as sharp as it is. It'd be just a little bit more gradual. Again, since you gotta look at the nose. Look at the nose shadow to tell the kind of light environment. The nose tells you how strong the light is. Write that back. That basically means that if the nose is casting a really sharp shadow, it means the light source is hella strong and really nearby. If it's casting a really diffused shadow, it means it's pretty far away and it's not that strong, and it's a pretty universal room. Maybe there's multiple lights around, diffusing all kinds. So if this shadow couldn't survive in this environment, how did this one? Unless she got paint and painted the inside of her eyes. Okay, this kind of looks like my sister. She looks just like that. She's so pretty. Okay, so I'm just going to keep some of that edge back. Okay, so before, see how dark that inner eye was? It's like she got makeup and just put it there like an Ursula makeup. Nose shadow tells you how strong the light is. Yes. So any questions about this before and after? Noses are talking about light sources all the time. Sister Brack. Yeah. Okay, so it's time to announce the next challenge. Sorry, I just drank a bunch of tea. I'm so sorry if you heard mouth sounds. Yes. So the next challenge is called the Adventure Fellowship, and it is basically you're supposed to draw a group of 5 characters, each with their own rules, and the point of this challenge is exactly the same as the point of the last one. You are rendering something thoroughly so that you understand exactly what kind of, the anatomy of the detail, which is what we talked about when we did the witch's hovel. We were talking about how really just what does bark look like. Using a line to draw something means that you're expected to know what that object's anatomy is. The object's mechanics, thinking about architecture, the cube, preserving all kinds of geometry. So when we use a line, we're really challenging you. So in order to do and pull off this, to improve you on, what to think about in costume and expression and props and role, using a line is another really, really great way to improve you guys in this way. So the next challenge is going to be, again, another pencil, fully cleaned up assignment, and you're going to be drawing these characters. You're going to be expected to have poses and The characters are going to be, I'm going to announce it some more, don't worry. This is just a quick brief. But the characters are going to be the Bruiser or Berserker, female only. Healer, Shaman or Seer, male only. The Sorcerer or Scholar, male or female optional. The Archer, Tracker, Ranger or Scout, female. The Swordsman or Knight, male or female. A group of 5 characters on a quest, and you're just supposed to design them for you. Imagine I'm the commissioner or the art director, and I've given you this list of stuff we're supposed to be drawing for this upcoming game or this upcoming novel or something, and a movie, and you're supposed to be creating concepts for these characters. The lines have to be clean. The roles that you draw, they have to reinforce the descriptions that belong to each role. I will upload a resource pack. You have to stay very close to your references and not overlap different roles together. You're not supposed to be confusing the viewer. Do not confuse the audience. But do you guys have any questions about this challenge so far? What would you like for me to include in the resource pack? So I have lots of references. I'm going to be adding some more, and I'm going to be uploading the resource pack by the end of this week. Just want you, I wanted to tell you guys to keep you guys on the lookout for this. You guys can start on them if you want basic gestures. They're supposed to be uploaded side by side. On a long canvas just like this. I want the exact, if some of you are going digital, I want the exact value of the background to be E. So 6 E's. Alright, this is the exact value. I've described it in the PDF, but I'm still gonna, I expect that from you guys. Not really races, no. Roles. It's not races. It's not about races. They can be from different clans, just like how, the world of Middle-earth, they weren't really different races. You had different species of people, and, I guess they were races because you had elves and hobbits and men, but they were all from the same peninsula. They're all from the same land. They're all from the same area. They're not that far away from each other. They all know what a dagger is, right? They all have that basic technology. They all know what a wagon is. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a completely different, separated black hole of a culture that each and every single one of them is from. So you can't just draw like an Indian inspired sorcerer and then draw like a Norse bruiser. I want them all to be from a very similar geographical location. All right, so good question. Let me write all these notes down. All right. So if they're all traveling together, they're all going to wear some kind of warm clothing if they're in a really cold environment. Dang, I struggle drawing a shed in the woods. Let alone drawing 5 characters. I expect full detail. I expect clean work. I really want you guys to push yourselves. All of my pointers and all of my, the whole lesson for the Witch's Hovel that we spent 2 hours on, I want you guys to rewatch that and take a look at all the pointers. Be careful with detail overload. Be careful with false detail. So just scribbling a bunch of crap and just expecting it to read as fur. Think about how clean your line is. Line efficiency. Making sure that you have relief points, so large spaces that are empty, against cluttered areas that are detailed. Distribute your detail evenly. Think about the functionality of the role. So, the functionality of the costume. Does it really work? Does it really read? Can it really defend this person if it's armor? It has to make sense. The expression and the gesture reflect a lot of who they are. So this guy is supposed to be the sorcerer, my version of the sorcerer anyway, but he's all proper and symmetrical and perfect. But this is the bruiser, and she's all, nobody fucks with me, and she's got an asymmetrical, fuck the world rebel kind of gesture, who's very tough, and she poses with her axe, so she's very proud of her strength and her size. This one here is the swordsman. I'm really rethinking this design. I'm not sure I like this one. I wanted her to have, she's actually missing an arm. I wanted her to have more of a biting more than she can chew kind of attitude. Also a very symmetrical and kind of like a proud swordsman or something. I don't think I successfully pulled this off. But that's what I was going for. Something a little bit more wild, but at the same time refined with her swordsman skills or whatnot. You'll get more information on every single role and what is expected from each role, how they feel about the quest or whatnot, what the quest is specifically. So I wrote a quick narrative to help get you started. That needs to be added. I'll edit it later. Yeah, you can't edit a PDF. But yeah, please remember that you don't use different brushes for the same sketch. Please use the same brush for the same sketch. For the love of God, don't change your brush. Keep it the same size and keep it the same brush. And then finally, we have my website. So go to istebrak.com. If you want to join this challenge, I'm going to try to push these challenges without polls for as long as possible. But if you guys want to, if you want to vote again, I think after this challenge we'll be able to cast some votes, and so you guys can choose the next theme. But I've been assigning these because I feel like we all need help with this. But go to istebrak.com and then go to the community tab. The Adventure Fellowship Resource Pack will be available here. Once I'm finished putting it together, getting as much resources as I can for you guys, I'll post it up here and you'll be able to download it right out of Dropbox. If you're interested in Portrait Studio, it's available on the store, along with my brushes and a bunch of other content that I have available. I'm back to the community tab. On YouTube is where I post all of these recordings, so just go to YouTube. It'll be there if you want to follow and subscribe. Facebook is where you can go and message me back if you want your stuff sent back to you. So if I painted over your work and you want your copy back, you can just message me on Facebook. Google Plus, a really important link. We've hit 2,000 members, by the way. Congratulations, guys. But this is where you post stuff for the themes. You go to, when you post something, you go into the theme submission, and you make sure that it goes into this folder. Just give you a quick plus, another quick plus right there. This is where all the theme stuff goes. So just take a look. Some people did edits on their submissions after the critique, and it just looks amazing. Man, if I was hiring and I saw this in your portfolio, I would just, bam. I would hire that. I would hire that ass. I'm sorry. Great edits, great edits. So yeah, this is where you guys will be posting the character designs. Please make sure they're all standing side by side. Don't post one and then post the other role. They all have to be side by side. Before you post them, try to finish all of them, or a sketch or a gesture if you guys want to show your work. But before all of that, please wait to get started until the resource pack is up. Don't start just yet with the detail. Again, you can just mess around with gestures and whatnot. Do you guys have any questions before the class is done? Suggestion for the brush. A pencil-y, sketchy brush would be the best thing. Ista please. Why no? Because you guys aren't synced with my chat. I'm in the future. So I don't really see what you guys are talking about. 1999 high fives. Man, it'd be crazy if all 2,000 of the members were active. I do need you guys to follow the rules. The rules are very important. Let's go over them really quickly. Do not post links to personal merchandise. Don't talk anything outside of art. Don't try to discuss what happens in Game of Thrones and what you think Littlefinger's gonna do. Don't post porn or nasty shit or fetishist stuff. I really don't if you're posting furries and sexy fan art, that just gets deleted right away. If you're not prepared to receive critiques with a good attitude, just don't bother posting. You can't post more than once in a 24-hour period, or else this wall will be inaccessible to everyone. So what did I write? I was pretty eloquent about it. Please remember to read the rules so that the continued population of this group doesn't diminish accessibility and function. See? That was written so nicely. It doesn't diminish accessibility and function. So if this group starts to not really help people anymore, I'm going to close it. And if the rules aren't followed, I will close it. But as long as these rules are followed, the group's health will always be optimal. If you post reference studies, please attach the reference to the same post. So if you're doing a photo study, it's not going to hurt you to just post the picture as well, so that we can help you along what you saw and didn't see, with the form stuff. Don't post a bare image. This one really pisses me off. This probably should be number one. If you just post a picture, there's no description, there's no information whatsoever about where you're going with it. You just post the picture. I want some likes and I want some views. I will delete it. I personally will delete it. I will make a point of deleting it. I won't ban you. This stuff results in a ban. All that porn stuff and that inappropriate stuff results in an instant ban. Yeah, don't post a bare image. If you do it more than once, I will completely ban. This group is very big, and it's just going to keep growing as our channel grows and as our community grows. If these rules aren't followed, it'll be chaos. It'll be anarchy in here. We really want to make it so that everyone gets their critiques, everyone is available for everybody else. People can track down the person they've been critiquing and keep an eye on their improvement. The only way to keep it clean is to just keep our eye on these rules. By the way, there's an update coming soon, the new Google Plus garbage, which I think doesn't allow us to see all of the feed. It selectively chooses the stuff we like, and I don't know how it's going to impact our community. We might have to move over to Facebook. I might not have to do that, but God, I hope that this new update doesn't destroy the accessibility and function of this group. But she'll delete it, come to your house, and beat you up herself. But that's it for today. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope today's critique helped you guys out. If you want your pieces sent back to you, just catch me on Facebook. But that's it for today. Thank you everyone for coming. Have a great day, guys. Bye bye.